Hi, I hope you're doing well. It's been a very interesting week's fishing here at River Foss. We've got some grayling rigs and tips coming up. We've also been out scouting for a few new spots, so we'll run through that. I hope you enjoy vlog number 3. So I didn't actually manage any fishing during the week this week. All of my fishing was planned for the weekend. I was up visiting some family in the North York Moors, which is obviously a great part of the world. There are some brilliant rivers up there. So I had planned a couple of grayling sessions actually, which is a fish that I've not really caught this winter at all. Before we got there, however, we were out on a little family trip out to the coast, and we visited a bay that I'd never been to before, but I thought it looked absolutely spot on for some beach casting. Well, I'm just out at Runswick Bay today on a little family outing, but it looks absolutely brilliant. There's a really nice sea on today. It's a little windy and cold, but this is definitely a potential venue that I would come out and fish. Let's go walk along the beach and have a little look at it. As we walked around, I could see the beach was very wide and sandy. It was very easily accessible. There also seemed to be some really good marks. It was a cross between sort of mixed and just sandy bays, so there were so many good spots. If I'd had my rods with me, I definitely would have cast out and had a go. The sea was quite rough on this day, but from doing a little bit of reading online, it actually seems like that might be the best conditions for the cod. Well, there's a gentleman already fishing down here who I had a nice chat with. He fishes it regularly, gave me a few tips, so yeah, that was absolutely brilliant. I really hope he catches. He's after a cod, and the sea does look very coddy, so fingers crossed for that guy. Anyway, I'm going to have a quick walk up and down and then we'll head off. So next time I'm out this way, I will definitely be packing the rods into the car and we'll be heading out to Runswick Bay to see if we can get into any cod, bass, anything like that. And I'm actually pretty keen to get up there over the summer and do a little bit of lure fishing off those rocks. I don't know if I'll catch anything, but it's always worth a go. The next few days, temperatures dropped down to as low as -8 in some places near me. I didn't manage to get out fishing on that specific day, but I did take a little walk out with the dog and we went down to the River Dove. Now, the River Dove is some very exclusive fly fishing and I don't have permission to fish there. It's held by a number of syndicates. But the water looked literally incredible and it was so cold, the spray as it came down a weir was hitting the vegetation and instantly freezing into these incredible icicles. On Saturday I headed out for my first grayling session of the season and indeed the year, I think. I headed down to a small little river where I've caught a few small grayling from in the past. I walked all the way down to the bottom limit. When I was actually walking down and getting into the swim I was about to fish, I did notice an otter. There's an otter down there. I don't know if you can see it. Now here at River Foss we are a big fan of the otter. I know some fishermen are not keen, but I've actually caught many brilliant fish from rivers that are supposedly decimated by otters, and indeed I've had big pike, big chub, big roach moments after otters have gone through the swim. On this particular session it was so cold, all of the eyelets in my rod were freezing up as soon as they got any water in them. I needed a bit of Vaseline or something just to rub on them to try and stop them from freezing. Unfortunately I didn't have anything like that, so I just persevered and made do. What I'll actually do is talk you through some of the kit I was using to go after these grayling. Starting off with the reel. So this is a Leeds Classic centre pin by Lutham Products, Lutham Engineering. It's a great centre pin, very free running. I'm enjoying using this one quite a bit. My only slight complaint is the lack of line guard, which means if there's any wind or strong wind, you might end up with a little bit of a tangle if you're not careful. This is going onto a 14-foot float rod, so it's a really nice long float rod, so I can basically just fish off the tip. On a small river like this, I can drop that float right on the opposite bank and then just control it very easily. This has got 4-pound line running through it actually, the reel and the float, so 4.4 I think Drennan float line. That's one that I found to be pretty good, yeah. And then on that I've got my float, so this is a wooden chubber style, but sometimes I use stick floats, anything like that really. Today I'm fishing quite a heavy one because I want the flow to really pick that float up and pull it along. The ice is not helping at all, so that's why I'm fishing quite a heavy float today. I've got my shot and that's shirt button style down the line, so quite a few of them. And then this main line is just ended off with a loop, which you might just be able to see there. My hook link is then just connected loop to loop, and I'm using 2.5 Supplex and a size 16 Drennan wide gape specialist hook. I'm fishing 1 or 2 maggots on that, and obviously feeding maggots around it as well. If you want a step-by-step guide on how to tie this rig up, I did do a YouTube short video on it, and that'll take you through in a minute. So yeah, very, very quick to tie up, and I'll link that up here or down in the description. The only other thing to say is a plummet is your friend. The reason I cracked off a second ago is because I didn't depth check and I got snagged on something and just had to break that hook link. So I know this can be tough on rivers to use a plummet, but I usually just drop it right in the margin where there's a bit less flow to get kind of a baseline depth, a depth to start at. When you're fishing out a little bit more, you can increase the depth, and then if you find you're starting to clip the bottom, you can just shallow off again, and then you're probably set perfectly on depth. It's a really, really key bit that can save you a lot of time in adjusting the float. Now on this small little river I could use very, very standard stick float tactics, so just feed the maggots straight from the tub into the water and trot down in them. But the next day I went to a slightly larger river, and so I decided to change the tactics I was using to accommodate the slightly bigger water. What I'm actually using as my tactics today is obviously the long float rod and centre pin, but I'm actually using a bait dropper. And this is really, really key on these big, deep rivers. It's probably easily 6 foot in most places. So I want that bait to be where my hook is running, basically. So using a bait dropper gets that bait straight down to the riverbed. Obviously the bait dropper opens up and distributes your maggots or whatever else you're fishing really nice and consistently. So then when I trot the float through, hopefully it's along the same line that you've just bait dropped down. That's the idea. I'm also looking for the places I fish quite carefully today. A lot of this river is very unsettled, so there's boils and swirls, and I'm just avoiding those because obviously they can pick up your maggots and everything off the bottom and swirl them around in mid-current, things like that. So what I'm looking for is just the glassier patches, so the river where it's smooth on the surface, and those are the bits that I'm targeting today. Now, I don't want to give too much away beyond the tips and tactics and equipment I was using because this is actually going to be a video coming out on the weekend, so keep your eyes out for that. But it's safe to say that this was one of the best grayling fishing sessions I've ever had, catching quite a few nice fish up to about 1 pound 6 ounces, which is just an absolutely phenomenal grayling. I also caught a couple of very nice brown trout as well, which has given me some ideas of some spots to try in the trout season in a couple of months. And yeah, I've still got a big trout project coming up. I'm just desperately trying to get edited before then or around then so I can get it out before we immerse ourselves into a new trout season. But it's safe to say I went home from this particular session a very, very happy angler. And that pretty much rounded off my week's fishing. So I hope you've enjoyed this vlog, maybe found something interesting. Keep your eyes out for a video on the weekend, and as always, thanks so much for watching. I hope you've done well in your own fishing as well. See you in the next video.